Whitney, thank you for joining us. You played D1 college basketball at Oklahoma University. You were the team captain for 4 years. After your collegiate career, you played professional basketball with the San Antonio Silver Stars. And then you transitioned to a coaching career, and eventually went back to get some more education and became a leadership coach, as well as continuing your career as a sports coach. Welcome to Transition Talk. Do you want to add anything to this short introduction?
It's so loaded, right? That whole like time of my life feels like a lifetime ago. But my career was marred with injuries. I blew out both my knees, had like multiple knee surgeries throughout my career. So I feel like, just, it was a fight. Like that's like the one word that comes to mind, was just like a straight up fight with my body, with my mind. But the growth I experienced in that time, just completely couldn't have achieved that, without that experience. So grateful. But I look back and I'm like, wow, it really was probably like one of the fights of my life.
Yeah, it certainly sounds like it. And we'll touch base on your injuries in a minute and how that affected you past your career. Can you tell us when you retired and how that came about?
Yes, so that was 2014. So I had been so I tore my ACL, my second series of ACLs, my senior year of college. It was my fifth year. Very, very disappointing end to my college career for sure. But then I did get drafted, which was so awesome. Wasn't able to attend training camp that season because of my rehabilitation. Was deferred to the following season, but my husband had been drafted by the Steelers to play football. So we went to Pittsburgh, ended up having to coach in order to get gym time to be able to train, to get back to training camp. Went to training camp the following year, made it through training camp, and my body just could not continue. So played a couple games and had to bow out, and kind of mutual decision, but it was definitely probably for the best for my family, for me personally, and definitely for me physically to stop playing. But it was definitely felt sudden for sure. And I ended up going back to Pittsburgh and continuing to be a sports coach there.
Did you ever consider retiring earlier in your career, or even maybe so in college, because you had so many injuries? Is that something that came to your mind at a different point?
Yeah, I think that it did. I think it would have felt a little bit like quitting, just because I didn't have the closure. I went down and I had worked my butt off to get back healthy, throughout my career, and had been, all conference the year I finally got healthy. And then the following season had big plans for my senior year. And then I go down 10 games in, just too late to get another red shirt. And again, didn't feel the closure. I missed my last free throw. I mean, there's probably a lot of people out there that feel that way, but yeah, I didn't have the closure. So when I got drafted, had the chance to continue, I was like, at least I have to try. At least I have to try to get closure. And I feel like I did that. Even getting to play a couple more games professionally, it felt like I made my last free throw. You know what I mean? I got to like experience like, okay, I get to kind of go out on my own terms.
This is your goal come true, really. You made it to the WNBA. You made it professional. This is sort of like, even if it's for a short time, this is a big achievement for any athletes in their career. So it's good that you were able to do that. What were the biggest challenges that you face as you retired and transitioned?
Man, I think of going back home. My husband bought me a dog. The second I got released and I made my way back home, we went on a trip. He bought me a dog. It was one of those very like, I sat on the couch and I didn't have anywhere to go. It felt very like lonely. It felt very empty. I would work out and try to replicate the sense of like achievement, adrenaline that I had before, and there wasn't anything I was working towards. So then I started running marathons, right? So then I would like sign up for a race, and I was like, I gotta do something to where I can. It wasn't really about the competition. It was more like achievement. It was just like, I gotta achieve. So breaking that mentally for me was a journey, and it's still a journey, honestly. I fight it in myself. But just being able to be and enjoy without maybe the anxiety of I'm missing something, I should be, those thoughts in my head has been a challenge, and that's been the journey. So yeah, I think I miss most I mean, what I missed was the camaraderie. I missed the team. I missed just someone being in the same stage as me, someone knowing exactly what I was experiencing. I haven't had that since, honestly. And even the friends I make or relationships I make, even, you know, my husband who is an athlete, it's not the same, you know, than the people you go to war with. So I definitely feel like that's the part that was the biggest void that was hardest for me to overcome.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like the competitiveness and, you know, the team spirit and those moments that you share with your team. Were there any other emotional challenges, or can you describe some of the emotions that you felt at the time?
I felt really lost. I think there had been that one thing that you're training for or striving for. And when it's taken away, I think you kind of train yourself to believe there's that one thing that is right or that you need to do. And when that was taken from me, I lost a lot of my like purpose um, that I think I've always had just because of sport. I lost a lot of my like yeah, just like aim. And that was hard for me not to have that one thing. So I think that made me feel very like I was almost like my worth was tied into that. And it kind of like, it was like, wow, maybe like I think less of myself now, or so. I mean, I guess you could call it depression. I think I fight depression. Like I didn't like go into the state of like, I can't move, but it was like, I have to continually go, 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 go. So I don't face the fact that I don't have a thing anymore. Like, and then I have to find the thing immediately, and like not allowing myself grace to like, it's okay that I don't have like one thing or whatever at the time, to be able to mourn the loss of that thing. That was hard, and I never gave myself adequate space. So I think that resulted in a lot of like resentment for people around me, especially my husband who was still playing. Just like, you don't understand, or you get to have your thing. Why are you like treating it this way? Just, yeah, those kind of thoughts. And I think that relationally for me definitely hurt the people that I was in relationship with, because it was definitely just, you know, projecting all of those things onto them.
Well, and I imagine that, you know, while you were dealing with your challenges with your transition, he was living your dream of being a professional athlete. So that's got to be, you know, there's this constant reminder every day that you are not able to do this anymore. I'm also curious how you reacted with regards to your injuries, and it sort of like took you out of the sport, and often there's a lot of anger and frustration at the fact that your body is unable to take you where you want it to be. Was there anything related to, you know, your physical limitation at that time that also made it difficult to transition?
For sure. I think I had kind of come to terms with that. So I had torn my first round of knee blowout my sophomore year of college. And I think I went on a mental journey at that point, and a spiritual journey that kind of grounded me. So just like I became, you know, very sharp mentally, and I could compete at that level because of my mind. And then spiritually, I think that allowed me to kind of just find peace in my circumstances and realize that just the things that were out of my control, I could release those things. And my faith became a huge piece of that. So I think that did carry over. I wasn't as like mad about my circumstances. I think I was kind of resigned to them. It was more like, I'm going to prove that my body is still excellent. So I think like running the race, you know what I mean? Like signing up, I was doing CrossFit. I was like signing up for, you know, it was like, I had to prove to myself that like, I didn't let myself down. You know what I mean? I can still achieve. So I think it kind of maybe manifested more in that direction.
Yeah, and just before, you also mentioned, you know, constantly being in movement and active and doing things and really distracting yourself from the fact that you were no longer an athlete and moving into the different direction. I think filling your days with things so you don't have to think or deal with what's really going on is a typical coping mechanism.
Yeah, totally.
Can you tell us a little bit about relationships? So first of all, who was your support system as you were going through the transition? Were there anybody that you could confide in? And if it wasn't your husband, you know, how did you deal with that? Like, were there anybody you could talk to, basically? And how did you guys handle your transition, for you to have the space to transition, but also for him to be able to stay competitive and focused and sharp on his role as a professional athlete.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I did not make that easy for him. And I think that's one of my biggest regrets, is probably how I emotionally handled it and how that probably affected him and didn't let him thoroughly enjoy the moment he was in. And I think that is my number one regret, for sure, probably throughout our marriage, honestly. I don't think I realized how much help I was going to need and how much of an effect it was going to have on me. My support system, so he obviously, I mean, he's amazing. He was, whatever, totally understanding. I also was coaching, and I had hired an assistant coach who was also a high level athlete. And she had transitioned right before me, and and we kind of, it was the safest place, and it was very, very needed and necessary. And we would just, talk, and she had come from overseas, and it was a really neat relationship. So I think just very divine timing of that relationship beginning, and that kind of carried me, especially through my time in Pittsburgh, because I was around wives of NFL players, which they were the strongest group of people I know, the most selfless group of people I know. They're, the stereotype of an athlete's wife is just completely false. They are kind, raw, genuine, but they hadn't experienced what I'd experienced. You know what I mean? So it was difficult trying to, I'm dying on the inside. I'm really struggling, yet I don't feel like anybody's hearing me, because we're living this dream life of an athlete's, wife. And that was difficult. I'm like, I'm struggling, but I felt like I was hearing the message of, you shouldn't be struggling. You should be thankful. You should be thankful. Look where you are. And I was like, I am dying. Someone just meet me and hear me. And I definitely, I think I lashed because of that. I think I held people at arm's length because I felt very misunderstood, and I needed to be heard. And I think that was probably on me, not identifying that need of mine and just expecting others to fill that need. And again, a regret for sure of mine. I have great friends from that time, but probably, burned some bridges because of that. And I hate that I did that, and I wish I could take that back. But it was such a sensitive time, to be transitioning and complicated, with things that were moving parts.
And I think, this internal conflict doesn't appear just when your husband is a professional athlete. I think it appears with other athletes transitioning, whether it's, for example, turn towards your former coaches or teammate, feeling like they don't understand because you're transition, and they continue and you're not part of it, but you still want to have a relationship with that, becomes a conflict, just because of the situation you're in and them not being in that situation at the same time. What about the choice of, or I'm not sure it was a choice, but becoming a sports coach, was that something that happens because it was there and it was logical? Is this a conscious choice that you made? Did you continue to coach because you want still to be involved in basketball or stay close to the sport?
So originally it was truly purely so I could have gym space. I knew how expensive gyms were, and I was like, I gotta have keys to the gym, therefore I have to coach. So I came on as an assistant coach for that year, and I had the best girls. I loved it, and I loved just, again, it kind of replaced that void of that team void for me, I think, at that time. And then after, I actually took a year off to do broadcasting. So then I did some radio, TV broadcasting, just to people had told me I'd be good at it and just try my hand at it. Kind of hated it, felt very isolated in that industry. And then that same school I had coached for offered me the head coaching job the next year. So I stepped back into that role the next year, and then was a head coach for 2 years. So at that point, I hated it because it was, all the logistics, all the red tape. I was also 24. I had no idea what I was doing. They totally, totally naive, trying to deal with parents and all the things. So it was difficult. And so I had my second child. We were moving back home, and that's when we started kind of our journeying through the NFL. So that's when I stepped out of that role and began educating myself more on the piece of sport that I loved, which was the locker room. It was the relationships with the girls. It was development from a character perspective. And so that's when I started getting certified. And that's kind of honestly what led me through a very much a healing journey of, oh, wow, this is really raising awareness within myself, and then allowing me to pass that on to the kids I work with.
The sports coaching sort of, it seems felt a little bit like a transition phase for you to process, and eventually figure out what was that next thing that you wanted to get into, right?
Totally.
It's sort of like a comfortable setting that you could jump into right in, still being an expert, but be able to be present in a different role and move on to the next phase.
Yep. And I think it really showed me like what piece that I was actually missing. You know what I mean? I kind of got to tease out like, okay, I didn't really miss going to the gym and practicing. I didn't really miss like watching film. Didn't miss practice cleaning. Like, what did I miss? I really miss like impact. You know what I mean? I miss like the heart connections. And then you see the like, oh wow, there's a need there. Like that's what these kids really need. And I'm good at that. You know, I was a 4-year captain. I'm good at leadership. Like, and just kind of like, why was I good at leadership and breaking that down? And I think it helped me tease out pieces of the game that was like, okay, this is what you're actually passionate about. This is why you love playing your sport because blank. And then, okay, let's go for that.
So you went back to, can you tell us a little bit more what you do now, what you studied, what you do now?
So so I got my master's in school in human relations. So kind of like coming from that mindset. And then I have a counseling emphasis on that. So I went actually to complete my LPC, came in contact with a coach midway and was like, oh, that's actually what I want to do. So then I switched over to that. And then I got certified in leadership performance coaching. And then with my specialty is adolescents. I love the age, middle school, high school. So then I started doing some coaching, you know, just independently contract work for school districts, stuff like that. And now I'm on with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, kind of driving that through a ministry perspective. So and then I train kids and I give lessons and work with some club teams, but I love it. I feel, you know, finally, I think this year, honestly, feeling like very peaceful professionally, which has not, I feel like I've been knocking down doors with an axe for the last 8 years, just like trying to find that, you know, that thing, which I think is just false. But anyway, and I feel like finally I'm like, oh wow, there's an open door that I'm actually meant to walk through, and just giving myself the like, you don't have to sprint through, you know, just like walking through the door is fine. And I think landing there has been good.
So do you feel that it's taken you sort of 8 years to transition and get to that point where you're comfortable in doing something else?
Yeah. And you know, yes. And I think
it's a long journey.
It's a long journey. And had you said that when I was 25 coaching, like, I'm fine. Like, I think it's like, no, I'm good. Like, that's what we do, right? You just turn the page and you keep moving. That's what we're taught as humans, I think, but especially athletes. Like, don't feel, you know, it's like, you turn the page, like, go, like, you can do this, put your head down and complete it. And I think it wasn't until I lifted my head up and I started my personal, like, healing, like, introspective journey of like, why am I feeling this way? You're not meant to feel this way. And let's uncover like the root of that. And I think it took me back through things that are just, you know, pounded into your head as a young athlete, performing at a high level that are just simply not true. And finding my value, like, you know, in things that are actually true and what is truth and all that whole journey. So yeah. And I also think, you know, I think if I hadn't gone through it, I see how people turn 50 and they're operating like a 23-year-old that is still that athlete that hasn't moved on. And I see that, and I'm like, I see the like signs of that, and I see the that it terrifies me, honestly. Like, for me to stop growing and to stunt my growth and still operate, trying to grasp for those days. And so I'm so grateful.
Did you have any additional interest outside of sports or with other sport as you were a teenager, as you were becoming a higher level athlete? Did you develop outside of your sport, or were you completely just locked into basketball?
I had so many interests, and I think that's part of my problem. And I don't know how many people could relate to this, especially the kids I work with can, but I had too many interests and there were too many options. You know what I mean? It was like, I had all these things I wanted to do, but none of them were possible with my schedule or with, you know, whatever. So, you know, the number of internships I turned down, and just in retrospect, you know, my goal, and when I work with kids, is really giving them that perspective of like, listen, sports is a tool. No matter the level you play, it's going to end. So it's a tool. if you don't use it as a tool, you're wasting your time
Yeah.
because it's going to end. So it's like, I think I, again, regret that. I mean, I would love to go to law school one day. I'm hoping that's probably still going to happen. Like there's a lot of things that I kind of wish I had reminded myself. It's hard. It's easy to get lost when you're in it. I wish, I love what I'm doing and I think there's a reason I'm doing it. But yeah, I think it's a detriment to our young athletes to not remind them, like, how sports can also aid all of those things, how they can all like play together. It doesn't have to be either or.
Absolutely. And I love the image of the fact that sport is a vehicle at that point in your life where you express yourself, and you're going to express other things later on in life through a different vehicle. And I think it's a good way to like understand that this was not just your entire life and it's over at 25 or 30. There's a lot more to come after that. So you're a leadership coach. This is perfect because I think you're going to be able to really explain what skills you've gained or character traits you've gained as an athlete that you continue to use or you've transferred over to your professional career.
Probably the one thing that I'm so grateful for is I somehow, and I don't know if anyone relates to this or if this sounds ridiculous, but I like seek out criticism. I'm like, even my husband, I'm like, tell me what I can do better. Like, I know I'm not 100% like on everything and I need to know so I can grow. And I think it's that, I don't know, whether it's like facing your faults or your failures so often through your sport, trying to perfect whatever. I think that skill has really served me well because I think I can take it and I can, learn from it and actually keep moving and not just die. And I work with a lot of kids that it's hard to take it, it's hard to hear it. I think that's, societal, but that for sure. I think being able to diversely interact with society has helped me for sure. I mean, even especially you look at our culture today, and I've done a lot of learning myself, but just being able to like enter into hard conversations, right? To learn how, I think the locker room's like a social experiment. And we just throw these kids in the locker room. We're like, okay, coexist appropriately. That's what I teach kids. Like, how do we communicate? How do we connect? How do we resolve conflict? And I'm really grateful for that experience with a ton of different types of people. And then now their honest communication with me has helped me so much professionally and personally. Just how I could have been better. And I'm really grateful for those conversations.
Is there any type of like rehab plan that you have in place because of your injuries or things that you cannot do anymore? I guess, do you still continue to exercise and play basketball?
You know what? The one thing I can't do is play basketball. So I try, and every time I try, I swell for like 4 weeks and I can't move. But I can literally do everything else, just the act of playing basketball, which is so ironic and so funny.
Does it trigger too many things and too many emotions, or is it really just physical?
I think that's a great thought, and I honestly haven't dug into that. Thank you. I need to. I believe 100% that there are definitely like trauma held in the body, so that it's 100% possible. But I think on a physiological level, the explosion, like at the pace, is probably to do. I mean, I think my injuries happened in those movements, so I'm sure, like, the things. It just, I'm bone on bone in some areas, so I think it's just that specific move.
Is there anything that you could have done to better prepare? You touched a little bit on having some regrets, but I'm curious, if you were to retire now, with everything that you've learned, how would you do it? First of all, how would you prepare, and while you're competing, and how would you deal with your transition differently?
Yep, I think like the thing that comes to mind is owning that choice. It's your choice. And I think that I needed to land there. Like, no one was forcing me out. I chose this. I chose to marry a professional athlete. I chose this lifestyle. So now, like, choose it and now you own it. And I think that train of thought would have been life-changing for me. So I mean, I think that probably could have happened if I had initially like understood, I don't know, the emotions I was carrying were destructive and could have like gotten into counseling earlier, or, spoken with, now my experience of coaching, I'm obsessed with it. Had someone just, affirming my feelings, like validating, like, these feelings are real and they're not like overstated. They're not dramatized. Like, they are real. But you do have to own it. And I think that is my advice to anyone. Like, okay, you're owning it now. Now let's make a plan. You know what I mean? Now there's no excuse because it's yours.
Your transition can be sudden and unplanned, and the circumstances can be not your choice. But there comes a moment past the sadness, the frustration, the anger, the denial of not wanting to retire, where you have to make a decision to move forward and figure out what's your next thing. And I think that's what you're talking about, is like really taking action and deciding that, you know, we're going to figure out what's next now. I think it's
totally,
a great message.
Yeah. So yes, maybe not owning the circumstance. It might have been out of your control, but your next steps are what you're choosing. And I like not letting those happen to you for sure.
Now that your husband is going to go through the same thing as you did, are you approaching this differently, first of all, yourself? And as a couple, is this something you guys have discussed? Are you going to handle it differently now that you've had the experience, and perhaps also because you're trained as a coach, you may be in a position to better assist, I guess?
Yeah, it's weird. And I'm sure athletes transitioning out this season, especially with COVID and the craziness that has been sports. I mean, think of all the Olympians, you know, it's been nuts. And I think that does complicate things. And I think I'm maybe like more aware than he is, and like, not more aware, but like sensitive for him, like protective a little bit. Like I keep checking on him, right? Like, are you sure you're okay? Like, it's okay if you're not okay. And I think he's excited. He's definitely experiencing, I'm trying not to project how I feel onto him. So I think it's like allowing him the space to feel how he needs to feel. But I do think he's excited for the next steps. I think he's a little, you know, it's like there's a lot of emotions there, as everybody knows. But yeah, so just like, I think I'm doing a better job at giving him the grace that I wish I would have given myself. I think celebration is a huge piece too, especially for athletes that like maybe didn't have the career they wanted. I know my husband might feel that way. Like he never got to like be the starter, right? He was like, you know, he played for like 8 years professionally. I'm like, babe, that's amazing. But maybe in their minds, it feels like a failure. So I think as support systems, it's important that we celebrate that and remind them what, you know, what an amazing thing they have done. And yeah, so that's my goal as a support person for sure.
I love that you're mentioning that, because it's a big piece of the program that we run with athletes, or the transition coaching, making sure that your physiological needs are met and that you've adjusted your lifestyle. But the second piece is really, you know, let's look back at your career and switch perspective and realize how much you've gained, celebrate all of that, and start with the positive things that you can look at. Because it's true, when you retire, you can't look at everything and be happy, especially if the ending is not what you wanted. And often you have to go back pretty early on in your sporting career and slowly make your way to that last piece and really celebrate along, you know, all the little achievement along the way, the people you've met, the skills you've gained. There's a lot of small wins. It's not just about that one piece at the end. And I was going to ask you, you know, if you had any regrets on your career, or how do you now choose to look back at your career?
Probably just the like professional focus in college. I think I got pretty consumed with my sport, and again, like dedicated summer after summer, just always choosing it first. And I think, again, that's one of the things that are just, you know, ingrained in you. And I think it's good to be committed, and that's all good. I just kind of wish I would have sought more perspective for my life. I was always a really good student. I was getting great grades. I just don't think I had like made a very firm plan, and I thought I had at the time. But yeah, that's probably one of my biggest regrets.
Developing outside of your sport, gaining more perspective, definitely something that you can do in college. I love it. Thank you for taking the time to do the interview. We really appreciate it. And I hope that you guys have a good experience with this transition now, and that you will end up being a great support person for him. So that's fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you, Whitney.
Thank you. You're awesome. I appreciate it.